Question for everyone. Do you overthink using your custom Fujifilm recipes? Now, the reason why I ask this is I feel when I'm on Reddit or wherever it might be, I see a lot of people looking for the perfect Fujifilm recipe to use for everything every day. For me, however, I don't think there is one perfect one, and whilst I'm constantly experimenting with new ones, whether it be I'm creating them or it's different creators or on the Fuji Weekly site, I've got three main ones that I found throughout this year and last year that I keep going back to, I keep using, and they're my safe space maybe. So I want to talk about those three in this video. Hopefully you guys might like them, you might want to try them out for yourself, and we can kind of run through the philosophy behind them all. And the reason why I think it's important to have one or two or three, in my case, different recipes you can go back to is instead of spending all that time going through and deciding what recipe should you use, when should you use it, why should you use it, you can actually just focus on taking photos. And that's the philosophy I share throughout the camera in terms of settings and how I've got it set up and how I use it, and my workflow after that. However, I think it's important to have some that you can go back to, so when you are being more casual, you're out with friends, you're on a night out, whatever it might be, you can take some photos, you know you'll be happy with them, and you don't think that you need to mess around with them afterwards in post. And of course, remember when you're using Fujifilm recipes, you can always shoot JPEG plus RAW like I do. There's no reason why you can't go back through those files, re-edit them using the Fujifilm app on desktop or just in Lightroom, and you can edit them to your heart's desire. The first recipe I'm going to talk about, I did not create myself, and I'll be entirely honest, it's not my favorite one on this list. However, when it works, it really works, and I keep coming back to it time and time and again, experimenting with it, because like I said, when it works, I just get some of the best photos I've ever taken using this recipe. It's called Summer Sunshine, and it's built on classic chrome, which in my opinion gives it quite a muted, nostalgic look, which I really like. So I use this recipe mostly when I'm doing daytime shooting, as that's when I feel like it really shines, especially when it's sunrises, sunsets, or you've got some harsh light going on. I'll throw some examples up now of what I mean by harsh light. I was on a flight to Madeira, which I've spoken about before, and I took these photos that you can hopefully see right now using this recipe. And I don't think these photos would have turned out as good as they were and looked as cool as they were if I hadn't have been using this recipe. I just think it looks so retro, nostalgic, but just it looks and feels good. And I love the warmth that I get from those photos. One piece of information and one tip that I would give to people is it's fine having all these recipes, but what you don't want to be doing is whilst you're out shooting, trying to cycle through them all the time and be picking different ones. I mean, it's your prerogative if you want to, but I personally think that detracts from the whole process of taking photos, and really your camera is designed to help you take photos, not hinder you. So what I like to do when I rock up to a location, you look at time of day, where you are, what it is you're shooting, who you're shooting, and is it sunny out, is it overcast, whatever it might be, and then choose your recipe off that, cycle through them on the back of the screen and find the one that fits the vibe, fits the day and the type of mood that you're looking for. And then what I would do is stick with it. If you're not happy with it, you can obviously switch out, or if you're shooting JPEG plus RAW like I am, you can use the Fujifilm desktop app, and then using the RAW files, you can apply your other custom recipes on that, which is pretty cool. Or you could use Lightroom and tweak it to get it pretty similar as well. So that's just a little tip I thought I'd interlay into this video to help everyone out a bit. So the next recipe I want to talk about, I got from the Fuji Weekly page. I got this recipe quite early on. I've made a few little tweaks and adjustments as I've gone along using it, but it's pretty much as I got it. I wanted a recipe where I could use it for mainly everything, as I'm trying to normally do. I wanted it for unpredictable conditions because a lot of my photography happens outdoors, especially when I'm hiking or walking up different places, so I need something that will work mostly all the time, especially when the light is shifting. When we were talking about the other recipe before, there's definitely a specific type of light that you need to use to get the correct shot. However, with this one, you can use it when it's really sunny, when it's not sunny, when it's overcast, day, night, it doesn't really matter. You can use it whenever you need to. And I use this recipe when I'm out in the Peak District, when I'm going for a hike, when I'm shooting through woodlands, things like that, to give you some sort of context as to when I'm typically using it. It's kind of the first one that I go to, and then I maybe decide whether I want to try a different one or not. So this recipe again is based on classic chrome. I don't know if that's going to be a bit of a theme with these, that classic chrome is my favorite. I don't know if classic chrome is quite a favorite for everyone really. Maybe it's quite a default, but I just do love the colors that you get from it. I pushed a bit of the reds into the white balance and pulled some of the blues out. Color chroma, of course, is on. FX blue is off, and like I've talked about with grain, I just keep that on light. Clarity, however, on this is +3, which gives a bit more bite to the images, I think, but still feels quite film-like. For me, this recipe is all designed to make the images look natural, but still feel very punchy. I'll drop a few images up on the screen now so you can get a bit of context and a bit of an idea as to what the images look like, and you can maybe refer back to that when you're using this recipe for yourself, or you can go on my Instagram channel where I typically will say what film recipe I'm using, and then you can kind of compare, because I feel like sometimes people have taken my recipe and then they message me and they're like, it's not quite the same, and I don't know why that is, but it's not always identical for everyone. For me, when I'm looking at these photos, what really stands out is the red really pops. You'll see that especially in things like phone boxes, garage doors, or anything where you've got bright red objects. This recipe naturally pulls them out forward without blowing them out, whilst for me the greens stay calm and the overall tone leans to a warm but not overly stylized image. So to summarize with this film recipe, if you were going to use it for yourself, I would recommend using it in mixed lighting. Walkabout photography if you're just going out, chilling, doing whatever you need to do. Outdoor portraits might be quite an interesting one, although I think maybe portraits of people rather than faces, as I don't feel it maybe is very flattering for faces, but again, your mileage may vary on this. And like the other recipe, use this recipe when you want something that can work across all day. You don't have to worry about it, don't have to think about it, and you don't have to touch those raw files afterwards. They should always be a backup, in my opinion. So the last recipe on this list, I did actually build myself. It's called Daily Atmospheric, and I made it for those days where the lighting just can't make its mind up. Again, it's based on classic chrome, just like the others, but it's tuned differently. I wanted something a bit more neutral, maybe a bit more soft is the word. Something that wouldn't overdo it in terms of contrast or color, but had enough depth to look finished, again, straight out of camera, so I didn't have to do any work. And I'll have to say, this recipe has slowly become my most used and my most favorite. So it might be the fact that this is the recipe for everything, if you like the colors, of course. You'll see from the shots I'm showing now, it's handled everything from overcast hikes in the Peak District to indoor lighting through big windows to soft urban scenes. It holds its tone pretty well across all of them. I think what I like about it the most, however, is the fact that it doesn't shout at you. The greens are clean, skin tones stay natural, and it keeps that film-like balance without leaning too far to being too warm or too cool. In my opinion, some of these shots, there's quite a faded vibe, especially with lighter shadows and more muted blues. But that's exactly what I wanted from this recipe. If you're someone that finds themselves shooting in mixed conditions, 1 minute you're inside, the next minute the light is bouncing around everywhere at you. For me, this just would work perfectly for that. You don't have to think about tweaking any of the settings. You can keep your exposure pretty much at the same throughout and just adjust your aperture and shutter to whatever you want it to be. It's also good if you are shooting JPEG plus RAW. I find it's quite a good backup. So if you're shooting in JPEG plus RAW and you use the Fujifilm desktop app, like I've talked about, you can then apply this recipe to any of those RAW photos. And I find it sticks really well to them. Some of them doesn't look quite as out of camera, but with this one, I find I get a nice look to photos, even with those RAWs. So you've got a bit of versatility there in terms of what you want to do. You might even take those RAWs into Lightroom afterwards and adjust them a bit more. So it's a bit more adjustable for your needs and wants. And of course, just like the other recipes, this one is linked in my website. It's free to use. You don't need to sign up for anything. Just read the blog. The fact you've clicked on my website is a nice thing for me to know. So you can go on the blog and you can get it from there. It just makes it easier to keep them all in one place and to send to people when they constantly ask, instead of copying and pasting the recipe, and it doesn't format right and then it looks horrible. So that's why I've set it up the way I have. So I guess this video needs some sort of outro. It's never quite easy to know how to finish these videos, but they are the 3 recipes that I've been using the most. I sometimes do interlay some others, and I always feel like you should be experimenting where possible with new ones. However, I've found that within my repertoire of film recipes, they've become my core 3 that I keep going back to and keep using anytime I don't feel like experimenting. I just want to shoot some photos, they look good, and I can post them to Instagram, I can print them off, and I can put them on my website and talk about them with you guys. None of them are perfect, but I think that's maybe kind of the point. You shouldn't be looking for the perfect one for every situation. Like I've said, I tend to cycle through all of them depending on the light, the subject, or just how I'm feeling on the day. They give me a starting point to know how I'm feeling when I'm taking my photos, and if I want to maybe change later on, but not have to overthink it too much, because I should be thinking about taking the photos, I should be thinking about enjoying the journey, and it isn't always just about photos. And if you guys want to try any of these that I've spoken about, like I said before, they're all on my website, link will be in the bio. Completely free, don't sign up to anything, or you shouldn't have to sign up to anything, don't sign your soul away, just read the blog, find the recipe and apply it to your camera. And of course, feel free to subscribe. It doesn't hurt you and it really helps me. So thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.